Spencer is helping us tonight just to, because it's the first time.
We are rolling.
He's the guy.
We're rolling. Then, in that case, I'd like to call to order the Naperville Park District regular meeting, Thursday, March 24th, 2016. Time is 6:32. Jackie, would you call the roll, please?
President Riley?
Here.
Vice President Janner?
Here.
Commissioner Egan?
Present.
Commissioner Ensign?
Here.
Commissioner Heidi?
Here.
Commissioner Todd?
Here.
Commissioner Young, absent.
Do we have anyone from the public signed up?
No.
Then next item is new business. First, we have a non-corporate resolution for Financial Northeastern Companies.
Move to approve the non-corporate resolution with Financial Northeastern Companies and Ray McGurry and Sue Stanish as authorized signers.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call the roll, please, Jackie.
Vice President Janner?
Yes.
Commissioner Ensign?
Yes.
Commissioner Egan?
Aye.
Commissioner Heidi?
Yes.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Young, absent. President Riley?
Yes. Next, we have item on Wide Open West Internet and Cable.
Move to approve the agreement with Wide Open West to provide internet and cable services to the Fort Hill Activity Center.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? No discussion. Jackie, call the roll, please.
Yes. Vice President Janner?
Yes.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Egan?
Aye.
Commissioner Ensign?
Yes.
Commissioner Heidi?
Yes.
Commissioner Young, absent. President Riley?
Yes. Next, minutes.
Move to approve the regular meeting minutes from March 10, 2016.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Jackie, call the roll, please.
Vice President Janner?
Yes.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Egan?
Aye.
Commissioner Ensign?
Yes.
Commissioner Heidi?
Yes.
Commissioner Young, absent. President Riley?
Yes. Next item we have is discussion items. The first thing we'll start off with is the 2008 limited tax park bonds refunding considerations. Sue Stanish.
Yes, thank you. So hopefully you all received and had a chance to look through the presentation that Eric is going to give us in a minute. It was in the March 24th weekly packet. As you know, we had talked a couple years ago and even last year about our potential refundings and our 2008 bonds, the one that was on the docket. And Eric will talk a little bit, well, we'll talk a lot about why we're talking about this now and not a couple months ago. So with that, I'll let Eric Anderson from Piper Jaffray take it over.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, Sue is right. We were supposed to be introducing this to you in the early fall. The bonds that we are looking to talk about refunding this evening are callable on January the 15th of 2017. We have the opportunity to refund them on what's called an advanced refunding basis. And one of the reasons that we're here a little earlier to discuss this is because of this graph right here. And what this shows, and it's a little stale because this was produced last week, but notice what's happened since the year has started, both in terms of the 10-year Treasury as well as what's called MMD, which is a proxy for tax-exempt rates. Those have both declined rather appreciably. They've since recovered a little bit, but about mid-February, I sent Sue a note saying, you know, it might be a good idea to discuss this a bit earlier than we planned otherwise and bring some alternatives to the board for your consideration. And so these are the, well, let's first look at the rates that we are currently paying on the bonds that were issued in 2008. By the way, these bonds were issued to build out Nike Park. The debt certificates that you issued that we refunded last year were issued to acquire Nike Park, and this is to build out Nike. And notice again, January 15th, 2017 is the call date. We have one and one only opportunity to refund on what's called an advanced refunding basis. We have discussed this with administration as well as the finance committee. If at all possible, we'd like to wait until their current refundings. What is a current versus an advanced refunding? An advanced refunding is one that occurs greater than 90 days prior to the first call date. That first call date is January 15th, 2017. So we're well beyond the 90-day threshold right now. We can do an unlimited amount of current refundings. And the current refunding is simply defined as one that occurs within 90 days of that first call date. And so if at all possible, we'd like to not spend that advance refunding, because once you spend that, if you want to refund at any point in the future, if they're not within that current refunding time frame, it has to be done on a taxable basis. So we want to spend that one and only advance refunding very prudently. Well, we have another alternative that we've been exploring that we successfully engaged about 2 weeks ago now for another park district, and that is a forward settle refunding. And so that forward settle winds up being able to price today, but settle in the future. And that future would be sometime within the 90-day call period. One of the interesting items here, looks like we lost a lot of the formatting. But anyway, so here we are right here. One of the reasons that we want to wait is on March the 3rd anyway, we were 319 days away. The investment rate is appreciably different than the bond rate. That means there's negative arbitrage to the call. That is a little over $208,000 of, call it an early interest call penalty. So in a perfect world, we could wait until January 15th, 2017, refund that, we avoid that negative arbitrage. However, we don't know where rates are going to be on January the 15th, 2017. So what we've done here is we've said, you know what, we've got the opportunity to do advance refunding. We know we can save some money, but if we have the opportunity to price today and close in October, we don't spend that one and only advance refunding, and we get a lot closer to that January 15th, 2017, limiting our negative arbitrage. So these are just a couple of the approaches that we're using current. We're here in March. We could do a tax exempt advance refunding. You would enjoy debt service savings, but we spend that one and only advance refunding opportunity. In April, again, we're still tax exempt advance refunding, or the board could consider the forward delivery tax exempt current refunding by pricing then, settling in October. Obviously, we'll do a refunding efficiency analysis in that we're already engaged in doing comparisons, and then the required thresholds, we generally like to use the GFOA guidelines of 3 to 5%. We're well above the 5% threshold at this point. We're actually closer to 14% right now. So these are I've talked about these, but that just as a point on the forward delivery, it's really placing it to individual banks. So banks around the country, we have about 65 banks that we've sent these out to. They respond back to us and they say, yep, you know, we're willing to, for this rate, buy the bonds from the district, non-rated, without need, so there's no need for the Moody's rating. We have a AAA rating, so we're not afraid of that, but it means that we don't have to spend that money. So it's a little bit more efficient. We don't have other elements of the transaction like disclosure counsel. We don't have, underwriters counsel. We don't have things like paying agent registrar. Ultimately, the savings accrue to the district of about $25,000. While that's nice, that's not the true motivator. The true motivator is to capture where interest rates are in an uncertain period when the Federal Reserve has, before the year began, and back in December actually, they raised rates for the first time in 9.5 years. They raised them by a quarter. What happened? You saw that on the first page. Longer term rates declined. One of the Fed governors today said that he'd like to raise rates in April. And so there seems to be a lot of confluence of data. Japan, by the way, issued 10-year bonds, and they're actually getting paid to issue those. So they issue those at negative interest rates. So, you know, what side do you want to be on? Well, we're not sure, but we know what we have today. And that's why we wanted to bring this forth both to the Finance Committee, who we just had this discussion with about a week and a half ago, and then with the board here this evening. So let's take a look at the existing non-referendum debt, just so we understand where we have things. You may recall in 2015, when the board issued bonds to fund various capital projects, we had assumed that CPI was going to be 0. And notice that's in that second column from the left-hand side. Why? A couple of reasons. First, we've had, as you can see, a 0.8 in 2015. We wound up at a 0.7 for levy year 16, calendar year 15. But at the time, we were looking at a 0.2. The other reason that we said let's be a bit more conservative is because of the threat of possible property tax freezes across the state. We still don't know how that's going to play out, but that was at least prescribed to be a 2-year window of time. Again, we don't know where that is at this point. So we have the opportunity, we have a little bit of debt service extension base remaining. The board may recall that you designed that approach to consume 5 years worth of debt service. So the next time you'd come to the marketplace, if CPI wound up being 0, was going to be in late 2019. Because we have this debt service extension base remaining now, due to the 0.7 CPI that we actually experienced in calendar year 15, we've got the ability with this refunding to accelerate. We've called it in the past collapse and consume. So we can collapse some of the debt and consume the debt service extension base. And so that's the opportunity that we have now with this particular issue. Can't do anything about levy year 2015, and we're darn close to that limit anyway, because that window is now closed. That closed on February the 28th. So, again, very limited amounts here, and then here's our opportunities, and then as we get out late or very distant future, we have our near our full complement remaining. Any questions about
May I
the
ask a quick
existing debt?
question?
Yes, sir.
You said one of your network, or maybe more than one, your network of 65 banks would potentially buy our bonds non-rated, but we were just rated again AAA, so how would that save us money?
They, what's turning out is they wind up doing the credit analysis and they assign an internal rating. So they're well
So
aware
they don't
that the district
trust
is rated
Moody's?
AAA. I'm sorry?
They don't trust Moody's?
Well, I wouldn't say that as much as they trust or they rely on their own credit workup, and they buy the bonds in one case through, most cases that we've done lately, through what a public market offering might provide. And so it's not as if you're going to sell them and, oh, we could have done better in the public market. It is, we're going to sell them and likely do as good or better as we would have in the public market, supported by the AAA rating.
But
It's a
so they would
unique
charge us to do their own credit workup?
They don't. No, they generally employ their own counsel. That's about $2,500 for that review. Otherwise, they don't.
But Moody's would charge us again if we went out to the public market now, even though we just
I see.
3 or
You
4
have to
months ago.
have a new rating for every bond issue, right?
Every bond issue, right.
So
Really?
On a publicly offered
On a
basis.
publicly offered.
that AAA isn't an umbrella, right? It's per issue.
They rate they rate our whole portfolio, but every time you do any kind of new issue or refunding, they want you to re-rate. And then they look at the whole thing.
Right. So, we've got 4 options. Take a look at. We've discussed this with the Finance Committee and for your consideration. So, again, let's just take a look at the graph because that's a little easier to look at. This would be the pro forma for funding debt service, and the solid bar represents the original debt service. Why is the original debt service 0 out here? Well, because the 2008 is only run out for that period of time. So option 1, if you take a look here, we don't have savings in these years because we've consumed that headroom that we've made available through the CPI that was enjoyed at 0.7%. in 2015. Notice the net savings that get produced are $782,000 and change. And the savings are really clustered in levy years 2023 through 2026. Why is that? It's mainly because notice that the bonds here are heavier, so we've applied a pro rata approach. These savings are about double here because the debt service is about double. So it's a somewhat simplistic approach to the refunding. Any questions about option one? They all kind of build and they're slightly similar one to another. In all of the solutions, by the way, we're staying within the existing footprint of the debt service retirement period relative to the 08s. So it was originally structured as a 20-year bond. We would continue to retain that characteristic. The district could issue the debt and go 20 years out. So you could go all the way to levy year 2034. None of these solutions we're going to show you tonight bringing forth that option. Option two, a little different. What we do again is now we've said, all right, well, let's go back to that potential 3-year approach. So prior to the last transaction of 2015, the board had been of a mind that said every 3 years we'd like to come to the market. 2015, we changed that up and we said 5 years. It well could be that you might say, well, as long as we're reviewing this again, let's go back to the 3-year approach. And that's what this one provides right here. So the savings are structured just a little bit differently. Notice they're lower than the previous by about $30,000. Option three goes back to that 5-year approach and really clusters the savings into 3 years here, providing for, again, the board wanted to stay on that 5-year plan. You would have the opportunity to have more debt service extension base. Again, if you take a look, it's not shown on this, but we're assuming 0 CPI going forward. So those numbers are the most conservative they possibly can be. And in this case, then, that issue that would occur in late 2019 would be able to be of a higher value. These net savings, these can certainly be massaged. We have net losses shown in here. We can make that those zeros if the board wished to have that. But to get us out of the box and get an approach, this is how that particular option would look. And then finally, option 4 goes back to the 3-year approach and really clusters the savings in these 3 particular years. And again, will provide for a little bit larger of a bond issue in those particular years. The savings from a nominal standpoint decline under each one of the options. So we went from 780 down to 635.
Does risk decline accordingly? I mean, are they all similar in terms of negative arbitrage? And
each of them have that characteristic of the negative arbitrage. Each of these assume that a potential forward settlement into October. We think that we're using a rate that is achievable today, and of course the market will tell us every day whether that's the right rate or not. We've actually seen rates come down this week a bit after they had been up each of the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks really. And so we're, every day we're going to wake up to new rates.
Eric, can you mention too about how we can go out and test the market and not move forward if we didn't like the results at no cost to us as a district?
Right.
So I think that's pretty important with this new technique we're looking at. We talked about that a lot at the Finance Committee.
And you've always had the power to reject bids, but when you're doing a private placement, it's even that much more embedded in the district's suite of decision-making opportunities. You could go ahead and say, gee, rates that we received, while it's nice, didn't meet our goal. And so we're going to reject the bids, and we're going to wait. We'll either wait until July, we'll wait until October, we'll wait a month. That is a favorable part to it, and we don't do that at any expense.
Sue, do you have any other comments or?
No, I think when we look at all of these scenarios and where we are, you know, a couple of things, obviously the savings is significant. And I think that this forward call concept is unique to this time and something we should take advantage of trying to do. We can always pull out, we can go back and do another one. But with the volatility of where we are, I would imagine that our risk of rates going higher versus lower in the future, that we have more of an upside with that. So locking in at the low rates to me would make sense. As far as the options, they're all pretty similar. I think from what I've heard of the direction from the board, having flexibility in the next 2019, 2020 is pretty important. And of course, saving money for the taxpayers is also important. So as I look through these and what we have on our 10-year plan, and we know things move around all the time, and we have, we have Southwest Community Park in our plan in later years. If it stays there, that's one thing. All of these give us that flexibility at that time. We would also have flexibility if a big project like that were to move up to 2019, 2020 to do a fairly large issue under these scenarios and encapsulate the savings for this refunding. So personally, when I look at the options, at least in this one, number one jumped out at me because we'd still be able to go into the market in 2019, late 2019. We're capturing savings, and Eric, you can comment on this. If you want, the difference in the debt service availability between all of them is fairly, maybe a couple $100,000, isn't hugely significant. It would still give us the ability to do a large issue over a 10 or 20 year period at that time.
Or you have any input from the Finance Committee, or?
No, we did talk a lot about this forward settle and thought that that was something that we should take advantage of. And we talked quite a bit about that.
My money's on option 1 or 2. I'm indifferent between them, so I'd look to you, Sue. That $30,000 is a lot of money, but it's the flexibility between the 2 options. What you're looking at those plans.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, option 1 or 2, they're really not that difference in the availability in 2019. So in that case, why not capture as much savings as we can and then enjoy the ability to give you flexibility in 2-3 years out to go out into the market again if we want to.
Jerry?
Yeah, I mean, if everything is essentially equal in terms of risk and the downsides, I'd say go for the biggest savings.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to build off of that point, this is a different approach, but it's the same product. So in other words, the district still has all the rights and obligations that you would have by issuing a bond. We still have a call. Flexibility that we might have here as well is we could provide for there to be an 8-year or a 10-year call and have those provided as the bids. So we might get 2 different rates, and the district then has the opportunity to select which of the 2 it wished to enter into. It's nice to have a call provision that provides flexibility, but if we're at these low rates, you may say, you know what, the likelihood that we would be able to refund in the future may be lower, and we're happy to be paid to make that non-callable today.
Jim?
I like the idea of locking in a lower rate. Do you have a recommendation?
My recommendation is always how it best fits the district's desires to not only manage to today, but manage to the future. And I didn't care for, well, actually they all have merit because of the savings that are produced.
Right.
we actually built off of that a little bit. Sue, do you want to bring that
Yeah,
up?
yeah, so once we thought we'd get a structure in and we're gonna move forward with this, we came up, since the finance committee, Eric and I have been coming up with an additional idea we'd like to talk about.
So the board was in agreement that we wanted to assume a conservative rate. And that conservative rate on the CPI, I should say, was 0%. Again, low interest or low inflationary environment. Was it 0.2? In November, we wound up at 0.7, and from the property tax free standpoint. However, if you notice here, these are going to be the amounts that we're going to collapse into the 2016 bond issue. Here's your current accumulated fund balance. This is $224,000. It's expected to be added to in each year going forward. And so the discussion was, well, why don't we anticipate CPI to some degree? Now, you've done that in the past. It's at 0.8 and 0.7, it's been a modest impact. However, if you take a look at, you're working off of a debt service extension base of $2.43 million. Compounding off of that is, it's quite astounding. We've created a spreadsheet. If you want to go to the next page, Sue. Here it is just at 1%. And what winds up happening here is that we can accelerate debt service into those particular years of $30,000, $40,000, and $50,000. So we're kind of collapsing a bit more and consuming, but we're consuming not knowing what future CPI is going to be. We're taking a little bit of a chance here. So you have exposure. That exposure is that if CPI winds up being 0, well, then we have an issue. Now here's that same slide with a 0, and assuming that the board said, let's go and do 30, 40, 50, take a look here. We won't be able to levy, the county clerks won't levy these amounts. You'll have to make that payment out of your existing debt service funds. So notice what happens here. We go from 224 down to 154. So we're not going to exhaust that particular storehouse in the treasury. However, we have the opportunity to potentially capture these dollars, and if you go back a slide, and if CPI were to be at 1, notice you have a small amount of exposure here of $5,100. So, and this particular balance continues to grow. So it's a bit of a calculated risk that you have the funds. We ran this a lot of different ways. Do you have the 2.3 version as well?
I have it in the Excel thing, but not
Okay.
in the PowerPoint.
So the average, since tax caps were installed, is 2.3%. So we're really not getting too far out on our skis unless you say, gee, compared to the last 2 years, even 1% is a generous CPI number. And so this again, we're just building off of each one of the solutions. It applies to every one of the solutions that we showed you this evening. And it really is a bit of a directive from the board saying, yep, you know what, a 1% CPI, for example, might be what we'd like to assume. We were using 1.5 years ago, and we could accelerate these dollars into this particular funding.
Was that cut off? That's not big enough to cut anything off term though, right?
No,
No, it would not. It would just change the savings components a bit.
the savings would increase a little bit, and we'd be consuming that extension base that we are projecting is going to be there, while also maintaining flexibility. It wouldn't change, anything about the time we could enter back in the market.
Right. A little bit of exposure, even if you didn't want to erode that fund balance, the general fund. If
That
you go
would
back
be-
this slide, you would have that, because that's not big risk.
No, as far as general fund balance,
No, if you go back one slide, so what that, I'm sorry, maybe it was forward, what was you had the negative, that one.
yeah.
So we might have to, if you didn't want to erode that fund balance, you'd have to find 30,000. Am I reading that slide right?
Yes, Yes.
Right.
And now the debt service fund accumulation that we've had, we've never, it's not a policy, we've never counted that as our fund balance. However, we always do want to keep some reserve in the debt service fund. But we can count every year on a little bit of money gaining in this fund because of interest earnings. So I feel comfortable, I wouldn't want to drain it, but to cover ourselves, if we wanted to do this, I would be comfortable. It has accumulated 20 to sometimes 20,000 a year, so it's built up a little bit. I feel comfortable drawing that down if we needed to. Thought is with the 1% CPI, that's very conservative, and even if it's not one every year, if it's half, it still puts us in a good position where we're going to end up very close to where we are right now.
We ran it to actually exhaust the fund, and neither one of us felt comfortable by doing that, and that was what, 50, 75, 100?
Mm-hmm.
With a zero CPI, that's how that would play out. But, that would exhaust that particular portion of the district's fund balance.
So I never got the rest of your recommendation, other than you said that all four were.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, because I wanted to
Sure.
introduce this as just one more piece
Sure.
of the puzzle. I like option one. If the board is still of a like mind that says, yep, the next time we would come back to the marketplace is going to be 5 years from now. Now, if the opportunity presented itself, and this was the case back in 2015, and it still is the case today, and you needed to do a bond issue, or it made sense to do a bond issue earlier than 5 years from now, you could do it. And again, we're assuming 0% CPI out there for a few years. And so if we wind up having positive CPI, we'll have a positive debt service extension base. Or the district could do a modest amount of refunding and bring in a new bond issue earlier. Or you could capitalize interest into a new transaction. So there's lots of different ways. Deciding on this 5-year approach doesn't necessarily mean you're painted into that corner for the full 5 years if you don't want to be. You have the opportunity, even next year, to do it.
So we're just talking about non-referendum, right?
Correct.
And what is the limit on that?
What we're talking about right here, that extension base, so annually, the 2.4 million.
Correct. The $2.432 million is what the district can levy on a non-referendum basis for bonds and interest each year, and that's subject to growth based on CPI.
And that's cumulative, though, for the 5-year period.
That actually is an annual examination. So the way that we have things structured right now, so here's actual. Again, we've assumed 0 going forward growth-wise for the estimates. Here's what's already claimed, and then here's what remains. And I should have mentioned this before, when it's bold, it's actual. When it is not bold and it's italicized, it's an estimate. So notice all of the debt service that we have outstanding presently, we know about it, it's actual. Moving forward, this is about the most conservative schedule that you could assume, because we assume 0 CPI forever.
In
I doubt that will happen.
the far right column, debt service extension base remaining, that's an estimate because the CPI is an estimate and that drives the rest of the columns.
That's correct.
You achieve savings in an environment of 3 really important known unknowns. We don't know what Springfield's going to do, but the rumor's been 0, right? So that's a kicked around rumor, but it's unknown. We don't know what CPI is going to be, and we don't know if the last 10 years of district policy is any guide, what the immediate priorities will end up being. And with as much planning and care goes into the planning for what you want to do, you've moved priorities around a number of times for different projects for a good reason. Kevin's thing is backed up in order to make room for Fort Hill, for example. And so with those unknowns as to what possibilities will be, in that environment of those 3 unknowns, and Sue and I talked about it, it was option 1 with all of these assumptions allows for all 3 of those and still touches all of the important bases the board has given staff, that we want to manage our reserve funds so that they're not over-reserved. We want to have the flexibility for debt, and most importantly, we want to save tax dollars.
So are you looking for direction from the board?
Yes.
This evening as to, A, do we want to do it at all? And B, which option do we want to pursue?
And do we want to then, with the one option, then build into the additional CPI assumption into the debt service schedule? So that would be all part of it.
Now, the most, on that last slide, the most conservative approach would be to assume 0% for the CPI.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
You could assume 0 and assume 0 here too, and just say, let's just go ahead, keep it as it was. And if there's any growth in CPI, that increment that would be available in terms of the debt service, go back to the very first slide if you would. Of the existing debt
Oh, sure.
structure. Notice here, we accumulated, these were close to 0 when we got through with the 2015s, but this drove this number all the way down, which created this headroom. That's what would happen if you said, well, we want to do 0, assuming CPI, and we don't want to get out and do some advance or some additional debt that anticipates CPI in the future.
How much do we save if we take the 1% assumption? And we did the additional refunding, what's that look like in terms of dollars?
In terms of dollars, it's a modest number. It's maybe about $5,000 additional savings. But what it does is it winds up creating additional headroom. So if you go at 30, 40, 50, that 30, 40, 50 is $120,000. That headroom would then be available if you go to option 1. So this is where the board wished to be. You could put that $120,000 right here, or spread it out in these 3 years, for example.
Because that's the equivalent bond payment, right?
That would be,
Debt
that
service.
would be what would wind up, actually, plus the interest of $125,000 or so, would wind up being able to be spread in those 3 particular years.
Which would be helpful if we want to accelerate Southwest Park.
Right, exactly. And if it turned out, as Eric mentions, we have these known unknowns. We don't know what CPI is going to be, or if there's property tax freezes. So if you go back to that exposure page, and it wound up being, you go 0 with the CPI of 0 and the 30, 40, 50. We have that one?
Oh, we don't.
Yep, that one.
This one.
Oh,
No, we don't.
no.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
No, this is it,
I
right.
can do that one.
So in that case, then, you would draw down that fund balance by about $70,000.
I
Those are
wouldn't-
restricted
I
anyway,
wouldn't-
right?
No, there's no, we did check with Chapman just to make sure bond covenants don't require a reserve.
No, I'm saying you can't take it out of that fund. You have to use it in this.
You have to either use it here or for capital, that's what we've always done. So eventually, we do move money out of here because we cannot keep accumulating. I don't recall what the statutory limit is, but I know there is an amount that you can't hold in a debt service fund. I felt more comfortable even talking about this idea with Eric because of how much money we've accumulated in there. If it wasn't for that, this is our cover that if in the next 3 years we have 0 CPI, we just pay for it out of funds on hand.
If we have 0 CPI and we see a need to move like Southwest up or something where
Right.
we need to create room, we have a plan for it.
Right.
If you stick to the current timeline, we might not even need to move it up, but, for Southwest. But as we've seen in the past, and now even, we've got some correspondence recently, you might make a decision to do that.
Well, yeah, and things are starting to boom down there, and I'm talking to a couple of builders down there, and they're anxious.
When do we have Southwest?
2024 and 2025.
Well, first question would be, are we interested in looking at doing this to begin with? And it seems that the consensus is yes. And then the second decision would be, it seems that the consensus is option 1. Unless, or you get that
Well,
one?
the only reason you would consider the other options, I think, is because you'd want to allow for debt service earlier, that we would have funds available earlier for use, right? Like option 2, it'd be 2018, right? That you have some options. 2018, we had 77,000, right?
Right.
Available. So you could start doing some things earlier, albeit small. But, and 3 doesn't quite give it to you, but 4 gives you a much bigger, but you have less savings.
Right.
So I think we have to look at what time frame we think we might be doing some of this stuff, if we're gonna move southwest up. Right now, we've got Fort Hill to finish, and the maintenance facility is due to start when?
This July.
July, and that'll go July through when?
May of 2017.
2017, so.
And also next year in 2017, there's the community interest and opinion survey that's slated.
Right.
There's the strategic plan, and there's an update to the master plan. So that's essentially looking forward at the next chapter of the neighborhood.
Okay, so we'll get a lot of data in 2017.
Even if we wanted to do that and told you to start going now, you're not, unlike a Southwest Community Park, you're not gonna, that's a
No.
long process, right? So you're not, 2018 might be the earliest that you'd even be looking to bid. So I don't know.
Well, part of the issue there, Commissioner Egan, is why Eric brings up the planning is originally it was scheduled to be a 4-diamond baseball complex lit with some other things. And it's not clear that the need is for that many baseball diamonds.
Right.
And so part of the customer interest survey is to find out, well, maybe we start with a blank slate about the territory and find out maybe the plan is something different.
Right, and that's why I was trying to, I said, like, Marie's point's well taken. It's best case scenario if we draw what was there now and start to build that. I don't know that we would need the money before 2019, best case.
Right.
And then if you're
Yeah,
gonna
right.
change things, it's probably 2020-ish, that, depending on how.
So if we don't feel that we're gonna be able to actually start anything before 2020, then option 1 certainly looks the best because it gives us the most savings and it allows us to start some project in 2020.
True, and we always have a fallback, as Eric mentioned. If something really unexpected came up that isn't even on the horizon right now,
Right.
we can still do things through debt instruments to get money earlier if that came up.
Yeah. So, okay.
Okay, so we're settled on option 1 as far as direction?
I'm good with that.
Yeah. So then, next up is the secondary decision that we had.
Right. And these numbers were again, numbers that Sue and I worked, the 1%, and 30, 40, 50.
And this all implies that
Direct.
forward settle, right?
This would apply, we could do this really in any scenario, any
Right.
kind of advanced current. It's the way that
But the forward settle gives us big options in terms of we can do it, we cannot do it if we change our mind, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So
I like this option.
that is a question.
The
What do we-
1%.
What do we think about this?
So I'm sorry, so we decide this now even though we don't know what CPI is going to be?
Yeah, that's the,
And that's why we have that fund balance, what we've got in cash below, because that's the safety net if it's 0 for 3 years.
Right.
Probably very, very unlikely.
If that's 2.3%, which is the average, it's shocking what this number turns out to be because of the compounding over time. But again, we're trying to stay within the confines of being conservative. And we don't want to get too far out because of the known unknowns, which if they come in against us, we don't want to deplete the debt service fund.
Rich?
So we need to decide what number we're gonna estimate for CPI, is that what we're looking at?
That would be favorable to have. in terms of the structuring, right?
Seems to me zero would be most conservative, but
I think the question is, are you okay with taking the, if it doesn't become 1% and it's negative, are you okay with eroding the fund balance?
Right.
So if it is zero, whatever those numbers were, you're taking out 70 grand over the course of a couple of years?
Right, and that assumes that it's 0% each and every year too.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
One more.
Yeah.
No.
That one.
No, it's the next one. Those
That
two.
one.
Sorry. Yeah, that's worst case.
I don't think that's a bad bet.
I would think you'd want this myself.
Yeah.
Agree, yeah, I agree.
But-
I'm sorry, you missed that. Somebody said, Jerry said something else.
I would think that we would want to make this our assumption because it's the worst case.
Right.
Yeah.
So if it turns out that it is 0.7, and we've assumed 0, what happens?
It just, this is what well, if we
Let's say
assume, we say
one.
it's 1.
Okay.
This is what happens. We don't deplete any of our funds in our debt service, and we've loaded up 30, 40, 50,000 in those years
Yeah.
to use. So basically, we're saving a little bit more money. We keep our money in our debt service fund, and we use that extra additional debt service extension base.
So the question is, yes, the 0 would be more conservative, but the realism says it's 0.8,
Unrealistic, is that what
0.7.
you're saying?
Well, it's been 0.8, 0.7, it hasn't been 0. So do you want to gamble and say it could be 1, and that gives us just a little bit more to deal with? And if not, we're still at the same spot we would have been if
The
it
issue is
was
off.
0,
It's
right?
It's-
You're asking about the 30, 40, 50.
Right.
And-
30, 40,
and-
50.
And we're wanting approval that you recognize that you want the 30, 40, 50, even if it were 0 and we went to 154. If it's better than that, we're not asking you to be Nostradamus about the interest rate, the CPI, I mean. If it was better, you do better in that regard. We want to make sure that what we're touching the bases, that you are comfortable with the worst case scenario and that you affirm, if we ended up with a reserve of only $154,000, you're okay with that. That's the issue, not asking you to guess about CPI, we're asking you to say, to commit to the 30, 40, 50, even if it's 0. If it's 1, hallelujah, it didn't cost us anything, and you've got the benefit of 30, 40.
Go to the one where it says 1.
Which one, I'm sorry?
Yeah, that one.
Okay, notice on this one here, you're actually, the phraseology is leaving money on the table, because this is debt service extension base that you would have had to have assumed a higher you would have had to
We
have
should
assumed a
have.
higher amount here, 50,000 to 74,000 there,
Yeah.
in order to have consumed fully, so.
The gamble there would be if you told Eric, oh, well then, let's not leave money on the table, let's do 30, 50, 60, or, 30, 50, 70, and
Right.
catch it all.
Yep.
Right.
That, and then if you went to a 0, it was 0, you're obviously eating up that much more of the reserve.
Of the balance.
That would be the gamble if you were, Riverboat Marie, if you wanted to go to this, that would be the gamble. You tell them to do 30, 50, 70.
Well, I think that it's been as low as 0.1, right? When was the
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
time we saw something?
Well,
Yeah.
it's been 0.8, 0.7 the last 2 years, right?
Those are coming here.
So,
Yeah, it was 1.7 and 1.5,
When you said it was 2.3 at an average, that was over what period?
21 years.
Time ago.
We have any idea what it is over the last time?
It's 2.1, I believe. The high was 4.1, the low was 0.1, and those incurred in consecutive years. So,
Well,
we're in for a
there's your
bumpy ride.
entire range
Right
there,
there.
0.1, 4.1, and then lately, 0.7, 0.8, 1.7, and 1.5, I believe, if you go back 4 years, and then a 3% prior to that.
yeah. See, I think I'm okay dealing with the 1%. And if we, I mean, the fund balance is there for us to utilize in the case that, okay, we need to, If we need to use it, we need to use it, but I don't think that I think we got a significant fund balance there. It's not like we gotta just keep piling more money in there. We should be utilizing it if need be. So it seems to me it gives us just a little bit more available to us.
I think is the question more properly, how much fund balance are we willing to consume? So to Dirk's
Exactly.
point, if
Exactly.
we'd use the 49 and the 74, that's gonna give us more headroom, especially if you move up Southwest Community Park, but what's the translation on the fund balance? Is that dollar for dollar, be $24,000 more of exposure?
Yep.
So that would bring that fund balance down to about 100.
Yeah.
125.
So I don't know where you start getting
Well, that's
why
wigged
she-
out.
Proposed.
Yeah. And, you know, typically we reserve a little bit for each issue, you know, that we assign it to within the audit. Again, I'm comfortable with 154. We've averaged around 154 for many years, and in the past, maybe 3 or 4, we've had a couple years of 20,000 going in 30, so I think there's some additional.
Mhm.
So I'm comfortable with 154 as our potential fund balance, as our final, if we had to pay the 30, 40, 50 out of that fund balance
Mhm.
versus debt service extension.
And this is a relatively short horizon we're looking at, because we're looking.
We only went out 3 years.
Right.
You could.
Yeah, I
you could
wouldn't
do
go
all-
out further
Right.
than that.
Yeah,
So that in itself is pretty conservative.
yes.
Any other comments, suggestions? All right, so I guess next question is, we seem to be settling around, it's 1%. Do we want to,
Are we coming with a 30, 40, 50?
yeah, would we be comfortable possibly bringing the fund balance down to 154 for that range? Because it's not going to be exactly that, because it probably won't be exactly 0% for 3 years. No.
I'm good.
You're-
If Sue's comfortable with it, I am.
Who you are? Maureen?
Yes.
Or with it, as the kids say.
Yes.
I am too, so.
Okay.
And this is still, we're not saying any paperwork right now. I mean, this is still.
But you're giving Eric direction on how he's
Right.
going to structure, which we'll talk about here with the timeline, how he's going to structure the debt that will go out on term sheets, or before term sheets to the banks, how it's going to look.
And we have the term sheet largely produced at this point, waiting for your approval and direction tonight, which we would have. And then at your meeting of April 14th, we would ask that you would consider and approve the refunding parameters ordinance. And then that next week, approximately, we would receive in the forward pricing bids. Then the designated officials, you designate 3 different officials at the district that can bind the board on the decision to issue the bonds. That would happen that next day. And notice, it would then be 6 months later that we would settle that. That's within the 90-day period of the call date. So it's done as a current refunding, so we save that one and only current refunding, or sorry, save that one and only advance refunding opportunity, which you may never use, but it's nice to have in your back pocket.
What happens if the rates come back way high and, I mean, we just
Reject it.
monitor and,
We just reject it. We just
Yeah.
say, no, thank you, and then we can, a month later, do the exact same thing and see what the rates are.
You get to see me in October like the original plan was. Honestly, that was, you know, we brought this to you because of that first slide.
Right.
Interest rates declining rapidly, creating this opportunity for you to consider.
And in the past, I think Mike and I have been the designated officials. And there's 2 of us, and the parameters
Yeah,
ordinance.
yeah.
I don't want to lose that point. Eric's able to bring you this opportunity and you can be this nimble because of your past stewardship of your debt. So I don't want to lose that point. Not every one of our clients could be this nimble.
Right. Yeah, the prior one that we did, the forward settle one, was for a AA1 issuer. So with credit strength creates the opportunity to take advantage of opportunities. So thank you for bringing that up, because that is an important point.
and that was recently, the AA,
Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago.
how did their rates come back?
Their rates came in, we actually did 4 series of bonds. 3 were refunding, 1 was new money. So we'll take the new money and we'll throw that away. But if we take a look at how the forward rate came in versus the bonds that were going to settle in 2 weeks, it was 6 basis points higher. So that premium for the 6 months of waiting is about as low as we've ever seen it. A year ago, it was about 6 basis points per month. Now it's looking to be about 1 basis point per month, and the market changes. So as the expectations of the banks might be that rates, we might see increased interest rates coming out of the Fed, they may change that premium. That goes back to the question that you had earlier, what if rates come back and they're not favorable? We reject them, and we just continue to monitor the market, right?
So, anything else you need from us?
No, I think we have direction to move forward.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mary.
You know what, I just say I'd like to thank Eric, because he came up with this idea immediately. We met, a day later, he was at the finance committee with a presentation that he put together, and so we can.
He doesn't get like 50% of our savings or anything.
And on the committee.
No.
Yeah, no.
Thank you, Jerry.
Like those guys that lower your cable bill, you know, take 50% of the.
Well, thank you, Susan. And, you know, apologies to the finance committee that we didn't bring up the nuance that we brought forward tonight, but Sue brought this to us, and we've been working on this probably about 5 hours, the last couple of days, just working on scenarios for your consideration, so.
No, we do realize how quickly this came up, and you know, you pointed out, I mean, this happened and, you know, a day later was in front of the finance committee. So having additional information as you brought tonight that's a plus from our standpoint.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd rather, you know, take a look at this stuff right here and now versus waiting
Yeah.
around for another, you know, committee meeting.
Right.
So I think that was the right thing to do.
Okay, thanks.
Great, thank you.
Okay, next item is Frontier Sports Complex improvements.
Yes, as identified at the March 18th Parks and Recreation Committee meeting, a total of $1,450,000 is allocated for the Frontier Sports Complex Improvements Project. From earlier updates, the project has 3 main components. The first component is an ADA accessible trail, and that's the wind through the existing multi-purpose fields, and that ADA trail was actually part of their ADA transition plan for quite some time. When we renovate the trail, we also need to renovate the fields because it's related. And then once you renovate the fields, as far as new earthwork and grading, you also replace the irrigation. The irrigation's over 15 years old, so it's a good time to do that. Second component is a prefab restroom. This has been our 10-year plan for quite some time. Last year, we actually moved it up into this project to make the improvements in 2016. And then lastly, the main component is a new parking lot just to the north of the ball field hubs that are located at Frontier Sports Complex. This would add additional approximately about 100 parking stalls. You may have heard with the commercial businesses booming in the south side of Naperville, when we have large tournaments and events and things like that, a lot of folks from out of town are maybe not very familiar with the how we operate the facility, park in the commercial lot. We really need additional parking down in that space. So those are the 3 main components and really make up the Frontier project. We recently had the bid opening. The low responsible, or I should say apparent bidder came in at $1,688,860. That's $238,000 over budget. So we've been in this situation before. We went back to the civil engineer and basically asked, well, what happened? Civil engineer explained that with the earthwork specification, we required a laser control grading, which we really need at Frontier, that he just point blank missed it. And this is the same civil engineer that worked on Cedar Park, the interpretive center, did a great job for that project. Our next step is we went back and looked at the opportunity, can we cut some of the scope out? And as I outlined, the 3 components are directly related to the patron experience at Frontier Sports Complex. Is something we've been planning for quite some time. And so then the next option after that, I sat down with Sue. We talked about the 3-year capital plan, saying is there a possibility to move out any projects to have the funding to present an option to the board. And one project that came to mind was Country Lakes. There's plans to add a new access drive, a parking lot, sports fields and lighting, and that's slated for 2018. The way it looks, that project will be shifted out anyways, thus freeing up about $410,000. So there are options to proceed with this project as planned. Obviously, we didn't intend for it to be over budget, but we want to present the options to the board this evening, see if there's a consensus on how to proceed on this project.
How much in the budget is contingency?
We figure about 10% contingency. That's about
So-
$140,000.
So if you don't find a barn,
Buried there?
there could be some, so you may not need the full
Well,
budget.
yes, but the amount that I relayed, the $1,688,000 amount, that's the amount from the low apparent bidders, so that would all be spent.
Oh, that doesn't include contingency, okay. So you'd be asking for something closer to 1.8 then?
Well, no, but in the past, we usually add about 5% contingency, and so it'd be about 5% on the $1,688,000. That's what we would be asking for. But again, that's why when we looked at the various projects in Country Lakes, that we're not, it's much greater than the $230,000. We don't even need up to 410, but we had that option because those projects are packaged together. If we ship them out, that would free up the funds. And if any other projects would come along, we would have that opportunity. But at the same time, what we found with the playground renovation projects, in total, the 3 that we recently presented to the board for approval, we were over $40,000 under budget. So we're doing really good with the other projects up to this point, but this is one of those outliers where we wanted to present to you and gather your thoughts.
Now, shifting Country Lakes, that's not going to eliminate it.
No, we would just
That's
shift it
just
out
renovation.
3-year plan. And that would be a discussion we can have further with the park board this summer when we do our mid-year capital and operating budget review, as well as when we prepare later this summer, fall, the 2017 budget.
There were 3 main areas, the parking lot, the trail, what was the third?
The ADA accessible path.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the
That's
restrooms, the prefab
Don't forget the
restroom.
bodies.
Yeah. And the prefab restroom project was been on the docket for several years now too. And that's something, working with Brad and Kevin, we decided to move it up.
Those restrooms would be located in between the large 4 hub of fields that we have in the center, and then the westernmost fields, the girls softball fields that we have to the far west.
Yeah, having programmed that complex for the last 10 consecutive years, that is the #1 complaint. The restrooms are too far to
Yeah.
to walk to, so that would be very much needed.
And the lack of the ADA accessibility through the.
Huge.
Yes.
That's a big thing.
And you may recall a while back a resident came to speak on
Yeah.
that, and so that's been on our ADA transition plan for quite some time.
Yeah. I'm okay with moving Country Lakes out, and utilizing that.
Marie Rich?
So, a professional like that, shouldn't he have errors and omissions insurance? Is there any recourse there?
That's something we can talk to Dirk about in this situation. I guess it really comes down to if this is what we wanted in the scope, and this was out to a competitive market, a competitive bid, and this is the price for it. The question is, if we don't want to cut the scope, this is how much it was going to cost anyways. The inconvenience is that we're not telling you 3 months ago in the design phase that, hey, wait a second, this project that we wanted based on resident input is going to be $238,000 more, or somewhere in that neighborhood. We're doing it now after the bid.
Yeah, normally it's about, at the 10% level, you start talking about doing work to help bring it into budget at their cost, the redesign. But not, typically the contract terms were forever at only at 10%.
Okay, so our next step is we'll present the contract to the board for consideration at April 14th. Thank you.
Vehicles.
Police
Yes,
and fleet vehicle purchases.
And included in the weekly packet were 2 memos, and they highlighted 2 different vehicle recommendations for replacement. The first one is replacing squad number 49, which has been in service since 2006. In speaking with our officers, they have requested that we purchase an F-150 SSV, which is a vehicle made specifically for police. It's a crew cab type. It has heavy-duty electrical, suspension, engine, and it's more amenable to all their equipment on the interior. The vehicle that we're replacing is 10 years old. It has 70,000 miles on it. The general rule of thumb in fleet operations is for police vehicles, the actual impact of a vehicle is twice that, because of the times that the engine runs and all the electrical is running, because they never shut them off. So we're requesting that. And then the second vehicle is basically one that's been an egg to replace a 2008 model F-250 with a newer model. That vehicle is currently out of service now. The repairs are estimated at $4,000, and unfortunately, we've invested over $17,000 in that vehicle over its life cycle. So we recommend it's time to purge this one from our fleet as well.
The one that's still running, is it go to Gov Deals, or what is that, how we liquidate it?
Yes, absolutely. So would the other. You'd be surprised at what we get when we lay it out, just what the repairs are needed. It's good, Mark.
Any comments, questions?
Nope.
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, move on to department updates. Start off with marketing and
All right,
communications.
thank you. So question first, Jackie. How does our show and tell deal work?
It works very simply.
We just
say, Omar?
Omar, the logo, please.
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm happy to introduce you to our Riverwalk Cafe logo. This is something, you can't really tell by the colors, but the blue, the water, or what's, I guess can be construed as a plate, or the water is a bluish gray. And then the leaf, which also can be thought to be a salad, so the whole salad on the plate, or a leaf on the water. Obviously, it's near the river. That, and also the text is kind of like an olivey green, which is going to tie in nicely with the finishes inside the facility. So that's pretty exciting. And this also has nice synergy. If you look at our other logos that we have, the Park District logo, the golf course logos, there's kind of a nice symbiotic nature between all of them. So it's really, I think it's going to be a nice part of the family of logos overall. So I wanted to present that today. Thank you. Pretty excited about that. Thank you, Omar. A couple of other things. I just wanted to give a quick update on the Fort Hill Activity Center sponsorship initiative. Ray, Brett, and I have been meeting with several different businesses to lay out the opportunities that are available at Fort Hill. We're actually in the discussion and following up stages right now, so I don't have anything really exciting to report at this point, but the conversations have been good, been very well received. I think it's giving some people in the community some good food for thought as far as what different opportunities are available, so I'll continue to provide updates, hopefully when we've got something really positive to share. But kind of dovetailing off of that, you know we have the event on June 4th for the barn, and we also have the 50th anniversary / activity center grand opening on August 27th, and we have been getting some sponsorships for that thanks to Dirk and Spencer and Brett and collaborative efforts as far as getting some money to fund those activities, so we're not using taxpayer dollars for those efforts, so that's some good progress there.
One thing I mentioned at Fort Hill Activity Center, we had a meeting yesterday on the grand opening for that, and we started to talk through some of the the plans for that and the program for the day, et cetera. One thing we talked about in terms of the actual ribbon cutting ceremony, it's we're looking at a brief ribbon cutting ceremony to give residents the opportunity to get to tour the facility as soon as possible. In other words, not make this a big event, so to speak, from the Park District, but just quickly ribbon cutting. Thank you for being here. Go explore. So in line with that, what we're looking at is, since it will be summertime, but it will be getting within sight of the election, we're not going to have a laundry list of elected officials speaking. It's going to be a pretty short list. So we're not going to look to drive political speeches in this. We're just going to, keep it clean, keep it focused on the residents, on the taxpayers, and the people who are going to be using it, and move forward with that. So it should be a good event. Sam's got a lot of really good ideas on it. I think it's going to be pretty cool.
This is it, right by opening in late August, is that what we're thinking?
August 27th is going to be the
Soft
grand
opening for the facility is slated for August 1st at this point, and then the grand opening will be the 27th.
Yeah.
That's right, and
So
so
which
which
one-
one is that, the tour?
Yeah, which one is the?
Which,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
When that
Is the tour in the 1st of August or the end of August?
August 27th would be a ribbon cutting
Right.
ceremony. So what Mike's talking about is the ribbon cutting ceremony, the actual speeches would be very brief. But the overall event for the grand opening would actually span over 4 hours, from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. We've got a whole list of activities within the facility, really geared towards more of an open house type setting. Come in, get into the different spaces, use the spaces, and see what it's all about.
So.
Yeah, we want the folks to be on, giving people the opportunity to experience the facility and see how it's going to benefit them, rather than, focusing on, what we've done, so to speak.
So what happens between August 1st and then 27th?
That's, we treat that as a soft opening. So we begin utilizing, the facility is open. Those who have purchased fitness memberships begin using the fitness area. We
You run
begin to take
classes?
registrations. We have a few late summer programs that begin utilizing the facility. But then we really ramp up with the fall as far as the programming that's going to take place there, starting after Labor Day with our normal fall session. It gives us an opportunity to get into the building, kind of get some of the quirks worked out,
Right.
get staff more acclimated to the facility.
Okay.
Yeah, because this
So
is.
limit the.
Yeah, this is an operation on a scope that we've not done before. So we know there's going to be hiccups, right? So this gives us a chance to get some of those little kinks.
Brad needs to get his inspirational poster with the kittens hanging in there. He needs to get that, those kinds of things.
Moving on to IT. By the way, I think that logo's terrific. I think it's, yeah.
It's awesome. It's been so great. Pretty
Wait,
busy
wait,
right
wait,
now.
Wait.
Sorry, back to marketing.
Yeah.
When are we opening?
Memorial Day weekend.
The goal is Memorial Day
You're
weekend.
gonna have a ribbon cutting ceremony,
We
something?
will do something, it's not gonna be on a grand scale, but we'll do something. We just started talking about
Oh,
what
we
that
have-
looks like.
We have grand scales for playgrounds. We finally get, a building or two, and we're backing off of these things. I'd like to make,
For
at least
Fort
make it
Hill,
significant.
well, for Fort Hill, the grand
Fort Hill,
scale-
you got 4 hours going,
Yeah,
okay.
there
I'm
will
okay
be a
with it.
lot of activity.
Yeah.
It was really more of, again, the speeches, the actual.
Yeah,
Right.
that sounds good.
Okay.
But for the Riverwalk Cafe, I think we should do, it's significant.
Well, we've talked about a ribbon cutting. We've talked about maybe some food specials or sampling or something on the order of that. So
Okay,
like I said, we just started talking
All right.
about that.
It's just in the context in which we live, which is DuPage County, and our community college and its restaurant. Throwing parties for ourselves is a sensitive topic.
Okay.
So that's where Ray's leadership came in and said, we'll throw parties for ourselves, but we're not going to use taxpayer dollars to do it.
Right.
And so that's why they're more modest and understated.
yeah, I'm just thinking more of just making sure that the public has an opportunity to sample what the offerings are. And I think if we do something like that, that's fine. But just saying, well, it's open. Here's the door.
That logo, by the way, kind of says Waterloo, doesn't it?
Sure, well, I mean, that wasn't. the
There's
goal.
water in the
This was
leaves.
more-
It is on the Riverwalk.
Sure.
All right. IT.
Okay, so
IT.
all that stuff translates to a lot of work for us. So we're just finalizing a lot of the designs for a lot of these things, getting the equipment, and configuring all the workstations. I know, I need that poster.
Do you have a tissue?
Yeah, exactly. I want a poster. I want a poster in our office. Okay. And we're also in the process of replacing our backup infrastructure. What we have in place right now is about 4 years old. We already have the replacement, and we're just configuring all that right now. So really, our goal is to have everything ordered, configured. Thanks to the surplus that you guys approved last month, we now have the space in our server room to stage and configure everything that we are ordering, at least most of it. So we might start taking over some different parts of admin, but that's okay. Just staying busy. So that's all I got.
Okay. HR.
Hi. On April 14th, I'm going to bring to the board for approval the second amendment to the contract that we have. The official title is the Occupational Health Services Agreement between Naperville Park District and Edward Hospital. We use Edward Hospital and their services for our occupational medical clinic. So drug screenings, various testings, like spirometry, we do their physicals to them. What I'll be bringing to you is an extension, it's the second amendment, and it's essentially the schedule of fees. There is only one change that's immediate. It does go over 2 years, 3 years for them, like we're in 16, 17, and part 18. But the first change has to do with the fees that they charge in relation to our drug screens. And if averages hold true, that change actually is to our benefit. There was one flat fee for DOT and the same fee then for non-DOT. They're changing that to more expensive for DOT at $20 and $10 then for the non-DOT, and average only 10 for DOT and 132 for non. So, absent turnover and additional positions that would need to be within the pool, we should realize a little bit of savings there. And then there are 2 changes in the fee structure as we move into 2018. The basic physical exam will increase 50 cents. And then the hepatitis B vaccine, which is a series of 3 shots, it's a post-exposure type of regimen, is going to increase $1 per shot, so $3 total. I think in the time that I've been here with the district, we've had 2 people go through the series of post-exposure immunizations. So that is the only changes that will be in there. I'll detail that obviously in the memo, but absent any concerns from the board, you'll see that on the 14th. And then we are in full orientation mode, updating our orientation for our part-time staff and setting schedules. So we typically, as a Human Resources Department, provide the tool to do the orientations, and then with the bigger groups, we participate and facilitate those. So we do 2 for the golf courses, 2 for the beach, preschool we do 1, Park Police we do 1. So those are all scheduled on the books, and we anticipate that we'll have many more as we have the different waves of hiring for the activity center this year. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Thank you. Finance.
Okay, so our audit is done. Auditors pulled out. We mentioned it in the Finance Committee. It went very well. Again, this year, compliments to Jeremy Link for doing just a great job and his team through the whole year, which accumulates with a great audit. No audit adjustments, which is remarkable, meaning everything was reported correctly through the whole year, and no management letter comments again. So we can look forward to probably Jamie coming out in a couple months once everything's complete. So we're just wrapping up some final formatting for the report. As far as the ActiveNet implementation, we've been pretty busy from the back end for the accounting for that system, working through some bugs there, and it's working fairly well. We're really pleased for a brand new software program that cash is balanced for the first month, and entries are going fairly well. So, but there's a lot of just day-to-day checking to make sure things are going to the right place. And then the whole debt thing's been pretty busy for us just this past week.
Very good. Wayne.
Yes. We have some slides to share with the board this evening. We had a chance to get up on the roof of the Port Hill Activity Center. These are the photovoltaic panels. As mentioned earlier, this is part of a renewable energy grant with the city of Naperville, which we're going to be receiving some reimbursement on this. Next slide, please. This is a nice shot down into the parking lot. You can see, in the past we've shown like plan views of the parking area and the facility. Now you can really see it all coming together as far as the site work. Last fall, the contractors did extremely well in catching up on the schedule. The site work is actually ahead of schedule but it just had to be placed on hold because of winter season. So when that starts up, we're going to be in a very good position. And then the next slide is just to the right there is Player Sports Center. And you can kind of see to the east, but also that parking lot, but just the views you have up from that area. And Omar, can you just go back one slide?
Yeah.
Just want to show, you see where that red truck is? Right where that truck is, on that side and the other side is going to be permeable pavers, and just down the middle is going to be a bioswale. So not only do we have the photovoltaic panels, we have permeable pavers, we have bioswales, we have a lot of green components as part of this project. As far as the construction activity inside the building, everything is going extremely well. As mentioned earlier, the building's on track for the public opening on August 1st. The running track slab has been poured, that's complete. There's only one slab area, which right when you walk in, that's still left to be poured. Spray installation completed everywhere except the fitness and 3 smaller locations in the child care area. Second floor framing is near complete. Roof screens are being installed in roughly 50%. Plumbing is continuing rough in on bathrooms and locker rooms. Roof drains are near completion. And then, really major component of the project is the elevator. It's been delivered and installed. Contractors are finishing the touches on that. And then electric continues to, as far as roughing the walls and installing pipe. Also, as part of this project, we commissioned a firm to come in and do photo documentation. So they're doing documentation at a level of like every square foot. So when we go back maybe 2 years from now, and Kevin says we have an issue with the plumbing, and we don't know why it's not connected, we're going to have it all archived and addressed for periods of construction. We can go back and find out exactly, instead of tearing out a whole wall, what's behind that wall. So that's very exciting because as they're doing all the, they're adding the sheetrock and getting everything set up as far as the walls and that, it's all being photo documented. So once it is covered up, we know exactly what's either below the concrete or behind the walls.
Whose good idea was that?
It was actually something that was presented to us, and we discussed it as a project team. So yeah, I would say as a group, we all thought it was a good idea.
Is that pretty common in the industry? I hadn't heard of that.
Yeah,
before.
it's for larger scale projects. So like something you would see in a major improvement like Edward Hospital, downtown city of Chicago, they do it quite often. But if you're just doing like a Riverwalk cafe renovation or a maintenance facility, it's just not large enough because at that level, your walls that you're taking out and checking behind are much smaller than like a major high-rise or a hotel complex.
Well, Eric's being modest. It's the first thing to go on a public project. Everybody offers the commissioning. It's seen as a luxury item, and when they can't bring their project in on budget, it goes. It's a brilliant thing to do, but it only is achievable when you're focused from the get-go on every dollar.
No issues with the test roll on this project?
No, I mean no like underground unforeseen conditions? No.
I like the nature stuff.
That's what you're referring to, right?
No barn under there.
Eric, what's the surface on the track and the walk down track?
It's actually called a Mondo surfacing, and it's a manufactured product. They use a lot on indoor running tracks as well as fitness centers. There's various levels of that material, and we went with more of a reinforced material, knowing that it will get a lot of use. And then as far as the track, we're actually going to be out there tomorrow and even measure the distance of the track to make sure we're spot on based on what the architect has come up with. There's also reality, and we need to make sure reality is where it needs to be too.
So then you're out there with your wheel?
What is the design length?
Was it 8 times?
8.58 if you're in the middle of the track. So what we're stating is 9 laps to a mile right now is what we're posting on the signs. But we're going to go out and verify tomorrow.
So you have people going farther than they think they are.
Sure. And we'll do inside,
It's a
middle,
field.
and outside lanes, and so we'll have an average.
But you can't bring your starter blocks.
It's going to be
No,
too
you
large.
I'm just wondering.
No starter blocks.
Yeah, to Jim's question, we're doing something a little bit unique with the track lining. Typically, you would see the lanes, you would have 4-foot wide lanes. And what you oftentimes see when you go to these facilities is a lot of people walking side by side.
Sure.
People are zigzagging around. We're actually putting in, it's a 12-foot wide track, but we're doing 2 6-foot wide lanes. Because with that, the inside lane being a walking lane, the outside lane being a jog run lane, we'll be feel, working with the architect, that that's something that may actually improve and help with when people are walking the track and walking side by side. It helps to define it.
And then I also like to report on the Knock Park Central Maintenance Facility. Yesterday we had the bid opening. We did all the packages, and there was a total of 27. So as we progress through the scope review and the reference checks, we will be bringing 27 separate contracts to the board, which you're very familiar with the Fort Hill Activity Center and that process. As part of those packages, we had 21 ad alternates. All the apparent low bidders, since the CM still has quite a bit of work to do, came in at $6,167,268. If we add that in with all the AE, CM, building commissioning, all the owner direct costs, FF&E, the total number comes out to $7,739,305. The number that we discussed earlier for this portion of work was $7,870,000. So essentially at this point, we're $130,000 under budget. Now, the key is that number, the 7.7 million number, includes our construction contingency. And typically, just like the Fort Hill Activity Center, you'd like to maybe carry about 3%. 3% would be about $230,000, and we're at $130,000. Also, we have some additional items that's part of the permit review process for the city of Naperville that's kind of going to take away from the $130,000. So we'll keep an eye on this. The CM, when they conduct the scope reviews with the contractors, there may be some opportunities for savings, like still value engineering. Also, there's opportunities, the architect's going to look at still to shave costs. So there's still more to come. We're in a good position, but at the same time, when you look at the construction process and all the unknowns that could happen, $130,000 just isn't going to really get us there. So we still have some more work to do. We'll keep you posted on the process, but up to this point, everything's going well. And here's another key point. Just a little over a month ago, before the bids went out, working with the CM, the project was $800,000 over budget. Various changes in code requirements and things like that. Working with Kevin and the CM and other staff involved, we were able to cut quite a bit of that out. So it was a very good process. Very fortunate to have a CM there. So as the architect's saying, well, let's add this, and the staff saying, well, can we tweak that? And the CM's like going, no, you can't. Like Ray said at the activity center, no, you can't do that because it's going to go over budget. So it was a very positive process, and it got us very close to where we want to be. We have a little more work to do, but I think we're going to be all set for it.
We may bring you back the possibility of deviating from the hybrid approach. The hybrid approach is the construction manager gives us a guaranteed maximum price, but we continue to hold the contracts, and that's something we developed. LAMP is one of the few construction managers where we've talked about it, and so Blank and my advice is we're comfortable with LAMP doing some self-performance. We typically in the hybrid don't permit that. But LAMP has a long demonstrated ability to do that, and that may get us some more savings to make Eric more comfortable with the contingency fee and some of the other things. To make self-performance really possible, depending on how all this shakes out, we may come back to you and say we need to have LAMP hold the contracts on this one, standard GMP thing, so they can do some self-performance and take out some of the bid packages. You're bound by some constitutional requirements, and you hold the contracts that don't really apply to LAMP if they hold the contracts under an approved GMP. And so we had a couple of packages where the negotiations with those folks about getting to within a budget for their particular packages will be easier also if LAMP holds them. But again, it's all to be shaken out here at the end of the day to try and maximize the dollar. So it's a possibility. I just wanted to alert you to it now that we may come back and do a change order to LAMP's contract to have them hold the contract.
So if they hold them, does that mean they'll use their people to do that?
No, holding the contracts means that you have one point of responsibility that's with LAMP. They've moved from CM and guaranteed maximum price to more analogously like a general contractor in that sense. But they've put together all the packages, and for things where they just don't like the bid, but they do have their own forces who could do it, they'll do that kind of work. It's smaller stuff, but it's filling in smaller packages where they have people to do it, whether it's site work, or some of the trades, they take it out of the bid package and have their people do it at a price that still, that allows them to honor their GMP and still deliver the product. But that's to be seen.
Anything else?
That's it, thank you.
That's it. Recreation.
Yes, we've been working to finalize the fee structure for the Fort Hill Activity Center. Over the past couple of months, we've really looked at a number of park and recreation agencies that surround us that have facilities similar to what we're constructing, looked at their fee structures that they have for whether it's memberships, daily use, whatever it might be. Also looking at similar providers within Naperville. In the next weekly packet, we're going to provide the board with a full listing of the pricing that's been developed for, again, memberships, all the way down to the daily use, to the open gym fees, and so on. What we'd like the board to do is take a look through the pricing, and certainly if you have any questions, please let us know. We are in the process of putting together information that will appear in the summer program guide, slated to go out later in April, that begins to advertise the memberships for the activity center, and we anticipate we will be advertising that we will start sales opening sales June 1st for the fitness memberships. The fitness memberships, when you receive the information, you'll see that it includes not only access to the fitness area that will be at the facility, so you've got all of the machine weights, the free weights. We're going to have 50 different pieces of cardio equipment that will be in the fitness area, each with their own personal television monitor that will be part of those pieces of equipment. It will also include access to the walk jog track during all times, access to the open gyms that we have available at the facility, access to over approximately 40 group fitness classes that will be held each week, that if you have that membership, you'll be able to attend those classes. And then you'll get reduced rates for childcare, for personal training that will be available, as well as some of the specialized fitness classes that will be offered at the facility. We're setting it up to where there are certainly different membership packages, so if you're not interested in the fitness membership and you're only interested in open gyms, you would be able to purchase an open gyms membership, or you could simply pay the daily use fee. A lot of flexibility for the customers that are coming to the facility as far as what they would actually purchase as far as a daily use fee, a punch card, or an annual membership to be able to utilize in different areas. We've also built in, and as we've said before during the course of the project as it was being constructed, for the track, free resident track use times. So we've identified times each day during the course of the week where we would have that advertised for residents to be able to come in and use the track for no charge during the non-peak times. So again, that information is going to be included in the next weekly packet, and it gets into more of the detail as far as that overall structure for the different amenities.
When you put that information in the packet, we have some comparables from other communities, other facilities as well.
We did not include that within the packet. It's slated to go tomorrow, and I don't have that to be able to. Okay. So no, I don't have the comparables in there, but we did a pretty extensive look at different facilities within the area.
Could you provide us with comparables before the next meeting, or before with the next packet?
Sure.
I think that'd be helpful.
Other than the certain times for the track, what other options do we have that are free for residents?
Well, certainly with the facility, we will have different special events throughout the course of the year, much like we do now, where there may be free events that individuals are able to come to. We have the indoor playground. We're looking at times there where we would be able to have some open play, some unsupervised play, again during non-peak times that would be available. But really the track was the one that we identified that we wanted to ensure that we had some free use on.
Sure.
So is there like door controls so that people can get into that area when it's not peak time and And but if they can't when it's not, or is that what you're just going to do on the honor system?
No, the way in which the facility is designed is we have a control desk, a small control desk that's located on the second level where the track entrance is located at. It also serves as the control desk for the second floor entrance to the fitness area. So during the peak times, we would look to ensure to have that desk staffed so that they're actually then swiping in people for use of that area.
Great.
Anything else?
ActiveNet, we had our second successful registration last week with Coach Pitch and T-Ball. That was one of our larger registrations that we had. It's been successful on the registration side. I think from a customer standpoint, it's worked pretty well. As far as staff has been concerned, we are having some challenges with ActiveNet, with the support function of ActiveNet. It's something that we're working with our account representative as well as executives within ActiveNet. They're very aware that not only Naperville Park District, but a number of other park districts that are also customers of ActiveNet are frustrated with the level of support. And what it really boils down to is they've taken on a lot of new customers within a very short time frame, and they are backlogged as far as the overall support function goes. So we're experiencing quite long wait times when we call in to get a problem resolved. It is taking some time to get some of the different problems that we have resolved with them, but it's something that we'll continue to work through with them, and as I said, they're very aware that.
How is that translating out to impact on residents?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's where the residents aren't necessarily seeing this, because the online portion of it is really, you can tell that that's where they spent their money beefing. Like if you're trying to do a transaction online, you're going to see absolutely just about no issues.
Right.
The issues come in the back end from the administrative standpoint of how some of the facilities need to be structured, or how, for us, how some of the newer credit card swipes that were just released, but now there's a newer version that just got released to be compatible with the chip and pin. So those are some of the things that we're having to deal with. It's more on the administrative end. As far as the customer is concerned, it's night and day from what Rec and Roll wants.
We've had a lot of good feedback on, it was T-Ball, we registered Quattro 4. The only negative, I guess, is, and it'll come with time, is whatever we had before was in the old system, and now we've got some stuff here, but that passed. But I mean, it was great feedback on the new system.
Right, we've got a couple of months right now where we do still have some programs that are within the old system, so our registration office, they actually have both systems pulled up. The majority of, well, in fact, all of the registrations that we're taking at this point are in the new system inactive. So
Now, these administrative problems, they're not potentially looming problem for residents, are they? Or?
No, and that's not to say that residents won't see glitches here or there. We did have a situation a couple of weeks ago where when you clicked on, if you were trying to access your account and you forgot your password, you have a forgot password, you click on that, and much like any other online retail site, you get a new temporary password emailed to you. That piece of the system was down to where you would click on it and you would not get a response. Come to find out that that was actually part of a much larger issue that ActiveNet was dealing with that was impacting not just Naperville Park District, but a lot of their customers. That was resolved within about 24 hours or so. And beyond that, as Omar said, a lot of it is behind the scenes, more of the back of house setup, reporting functions that we're trying to.
Well, I know when they, made their proposals to us, they were talking about good customer service and all that, which is one of the reasons we went in that direction. So I would suggest we be very aggressive, with them, and if you find it unacceptable, I mean, I would be very, very aggressive getting to the top management of the company and make sometimes the squeaky wheel, to make sure we get the attention that we need. This is way too early in the relationship for these problems to be, so I don't know what needs to happen, but, from where I said I would be very aggressive.
Okay, anything else? Okay. Parks and golf. We had snow today, so that's good for golf.
First with parks, and actually after we're starting to put all of our snow blowers away. But anyway.
Oh, you're the one.
But the plows are still on the trucks, so we're still good there. No, we're just continuing our transition from winter to spring. we're starting to work on all of our turf areas. All the turf mats are up that you may have seen throughout the park that we did restoration work on. Controlled burns are progressing. We may have that for about another week. And in addition to that, we're just continuing to try and ramp up our staffing. All of our outer bathrooms are now open throughout the entire park district, so they're starting to get used. And last, some very good news, our propane fueling station here is now active. So that's a big plus. So as we move forward to converting more and more pieces of equipment and vehicles. Golf, both courses are open. We've had several rounds at both courses. We've had some good days. The work at both clubhouses is moving along very well. The main desk in the pro shop at Naperville is now installed and totally finished, and it really looks great if you have a chance to stop by. Also, both of the washroom facilities at both courses, we're getting many compliments on them. All the flooring is complete. The remaining work we are scheduling when both courses will close for half a day for the fairways are going to be plugged and aerated, so that will not inconvenience any of our customers. And overall, just getting ready for the weather to improve.
Good.
Hi.
Administration?
Yes. Just a couple things. I'm going to be out tomorrow, so I will send your packet first thing Monday morning. There won't be a delivery this weekend. Are you okay with that? Just
Yeah,
doing
that's
it
fine,
via
yeah.
email.
So everyone, it's fully staffed though, I mean, tomorrow?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
yeah. Yeah, the building is open. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Check your constitutions, people. Katie can get it.
Yeah, I'm going to the Ohio State University.
We've heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, thank you for responding. I know there's been a lot of appointments lately. We're trying to hit a lot of the community, so thank you for your responses. It makes it very nice and easy to respond and be accurate and make sure all of that is happening. If I could get a quick, I know it was the first night we did this, how is the feeling of the handouts up on the screen? Did that work for you?
And President Riley is sometimes averse to change, but I personally love it. I mean, it's just great.
I didn't talk about the seating arrangement, we can still work on that, but were you okay with that initial?
I would say yes. The challenges are going to be when we get into some aerial shots where we're looking for detail, the ability to be able to zoom in and zoom out on those.
Yeah.
That could be.
I mean, we can do that.
Actually, you could do that probably better here.
And I think too, we can
Can you read the
utilize,
VIN number?
from a speaking point of view, we can utilize pointers
Yeah.
Right.
and
Okay.
zooming in, zooming out to get you right where you need to be.
And I really think in this scenario, if you really wanted to get up and look, I mean,
Right.
it is a little bit more of a relaxed atmosphere here, but you could get up and look closer if you wanted, and I know, especially Eric and the staff, if they wanted, they would put it in a weekly packet if it's something you needed to study
Right.
beforehand or things like that.
No,
So,
I think this should work good.
okay, so we'll continue this and keep working the process and do that, so thank you.
My only comment was that, maybe if we had a speaker like Eric, we might want to tell him where the camera is, we don't want to stand in front of it.
Well, very honestly, that won't be here.
Yeah.
We only did it double because that's the first time we're using, it will only be that camera from now on.
Okay.
And that was one of the reasons is it's kind of a nice area now to have a speaker, or if we were to have guests here, we're not all sitting with our backs to them. So
Right.
it kind of opened up the room. So that won't be here.
It's a backup
Probably.
to our backup.
Yeah, we're just kind of double
They
catching
set
ourselves.
bleachers up over there in the corner for all of our
Bleachers are
people.
fine, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but you raise a good point, Jack, about the fact that, if we do get, members of the public to come, had some chairs up there, that'd be a lot better than them sitting in the corner
Well,
behind.
kind of sitting in the corner
Right.
and wherever we can fit them, it kind of makes a little bit more of a professional,
Yes.
view for them. So thank you very much. It'll continue to evolve a little bit, but I think we're on a really good track.
Okay.
While we were on the topic of events, is there any way with the state of the city we can get someone to plug our 2 upcoming events, the June 4th event and the August 27th event, or is that a little?
I was actually at a fundraiser Tuesday night, and the mayor was there, and he did mention to me that I know the Fort Hill Activity Center is in his state of the state. He did mention that.
Maybe it's just so long as they know the dates and all that, so they can, I don't know.
And
plug
so,
that
yeah, it's
for us.
probably a good time, because evidently he's working on it. So he did make mention of that to me, and I know Senator Connolly was there and a couple other people, and it was, spoke very highly and are very excited to see what's gonna happen. Very excited about the Riverwalk Cafe as well.
Yeah.
That came up a lot with them, so
With or without alcohol?
no
That group?
discussion. Just a very good discussion. They're very excited for this year at the Park District. It was
Good.
very, very positive.
Okay, next time we have is executive session.
Move to adjourn to executive session to discuss land acquisition under 2C5 of the Open Meetings Act.
And 2C1 personnel.
What do you say? And 2C1 personnel.
Hold on, Omar. Hold on one second.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Jackie, call the roll, please.
Sure. Vice President Janner?
Yes.
Commissioner Ensign?
Yes.
Commissioner Egan?
Aye.
Commissioner Heidi?
Yes.
Commissioner Todd?
Yes.
Commissioner Young, absent. President Riley?
Yes.
There will be no action afterwards.
And I just need a minute.
I just need Eric.
Smile or wave for the camera.
We have regretted.
And Sue.
So,
And,
I heard your voice, and I meant that, and I had to leave early.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I saw your, I didn't see you speak it.
I was like, I know that, and I heard Jeremy, but it
Yeah,
I don't,
was a good presentation.
yeah, it was.
I mean, the whole,
This goes right to Randy.
Yeah. so take the little copy.
Yeah, I'm a fan of
this
it.
one project.
But the,
He didn't want to.
who did the JV Court?
So.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm not from